Hi everyone. So I bought a microphone because some of you complain about the bad quality of the sound, and of course I forgot to take it with me today. So I hope the sound will be okay. And there's this wonderful stream behind me, so it's pretty pleasant, and there's not much wind, so I think it will be fine. So in this video I'll be talking about the new spiritual paradigm, and in the last video I posted I was speaking about the dark side of spirituality and the new age, and all these outdated spiritual concepts that do not serve us anymore on our journey. And so it's like a next stage in the evolution of consciousness that we are in right now, and not everyone is ready to enter this new paradigm, and that's okay, because there are still people who need to learn from some lessons from the old spiritual paradigm. So everyone is on his own unique journey, and everyone, goes with his own rhythm, so everything is perfect in the end. So if you are watching this video, it's probably because you are ready to enter this new paradigm, or you're already there. Spiritual evolution is a natural impulse towards more awareness. So the more we move forward on our spiritual journey, the more what is unconscious becomes conscious. So the unconscious is also what we call the shadow self. So the more we become conscious of what emerges to the light of our consciousness, and the more we are invited to integrate this dark side or this shadow self with love and with care, the more we are able to be really feeling that we are more integrated as a being, as a spiritual being. In the new spiritual paradigm, it's the end of victim consciousness and the end of the victim, perpetrator, savior patterns. So in 3D and in 4D, we are still immature, and we always look for things outside of ourselves to blame for how we feel inside of ourselves. We blame them for our pain. So we are going to blame the parents, the family, our neighbor, the state, the Illuminati, the reptilians, the entities, or whatever. And that's because the ego always sees itself separate from the outside world, and so it always sees itself as a victim to the outside world. Everything is vibration, and we all have a different and unique vibration, which is always changing and always evolving. But in the beginning, our vibration is determined by the programming that we agreed to receive when we entered this world as we were children. So this programming is also called, wounds or co-wounds that are anchored deeply into our subconscious mind and our emotional body when we are children. And it's also called the shadow self. So what will happen throughout our lives is that these core wounds, or sometimes just these wounds, will be reactivated by things that we are going to draw into our reality, into our experience, may it be situations or people that are going to trigger these wounds so that we can become aware of them. So it's like the universe is, very benevolent towards us. The universe only wants us to go towards more healing. So it will place people or situations in front of us that will trigger these wounds, so that that emerges to the light of our consciousness, so we can free them, so we can then heal them and integrate them completely. So this is the case for anything that we attract into our lives, may it be dramas, diseases, any kind of negative situations, negative people, black magic, possession, etc. In the new spiritual paradigm, we become 100% responsible for what we create, what we manifest, and what we experience in our life. And instead of trying to find someone or something to blame outside, we systematically go within and find a resolution within us. So basically, it's owning our shadow, it's owning our own shit. So throughout our life, of course, a lot of things, a lot of situations, a lot of people are going to trigger us, and they're going to trigger sometimes very violent, automatic responses and reactions, may it be emotional, sometimes something that is verbal, or just a general state. And it can lead, of course, to inner or outer conflict. So what we want to do when we feel triggered by something or someone is to actually become aware that we are triggered. That's the first step. Acknowledge that we are triggered. And then we might ask ourselves, why is my ego triggered? Why is my ego in this defense mechanism as if there was a danger? Because that's the first red flag. The ego always wants to protect us from pain, so because it has experienced pain in the past, so every time it is triggered like this, it means it wants to prevent us from feeling that pain again. And so it will be in this sometimes a violent response or reaction that can be aggressive, that can be passive aggressive. So that's really like the bell, you know, that is ringing, ding, 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 to tell you, pay attention. So once we become aware of the ego's reaction, then we can really surrender into what we feel and really breathe deeply into the emotion that it was triggered through this situation or this person. And once we are done doing that, we might ask ourselves what this trigger is actually saying about our own personal story. So I will speak about that more in depth in a future video where I'll be talking about the nature of healing, how to heal the past, our wounds, the inner child, and also I'll be talking about the therapy that I developed to help us heal all these things. When we take responsibility for what we experience, then we become aware of the fact that all these triggers are actually healing gifts in disguise that are here to help us on our personal and spiritual evolution. So imagine if everyone started doing that, then there will be no more conflict in the world. And this process requires a bit of practice, of course, because it's so automatic and we're so used to having these automatic reactions that it will take a bit of time and practice to just become, you know, aware of this moment where you feel and you see that you are triggered, and to stop there and pause a little bit and come back to your breathing. So remember the little bell that I was talking about that's like ding ding ding? That's really to tell you, pay attention. You are in this trigger, in this reaction, and this requires for you to pay attention to it and to integrate it now. So of course, the closest the people are to us, the more intimate they are to us, and the more they are going to trigger us, because they really trigger us deep down into our core wounds, into the very most vulnerable aspects of ourselves. Along my journey, a couple of years ago, I was the victim of psychic attacks, and of course they caused me a lot of trouble at the time. But I learned from them a lot of things. Firstly, these psychic attacks can really be seen as something very negative and very dark in the first place. But I actually realized that it was like a beam of light into my being to show me the parts of myself that I didn't love enough. So it showed me the parts of myself that needed my love and my attention. And in the end, this was a huge gift. So instead of blaming these people that sent me these psychic attacks, I actually told them, like, thank you for showing me. And that's the case for everything that happens to us in our life. Even if we feel it might be very negative, and of course when we experience negative things it can be very painful sometimes. But we must really realize that everything that we experience, even if it's very negative, it's always a healing gift, and it's always there to show us where our attention and our love has to go. By loving all the parts of ourselves that desperately need this attention, we actually learn to be more gentle with ourselves, and we move more and more into this heart-centered consciousness, which is this consciousness of the new earth. So instead of wanting to kill, to annihilate the ego and going out at war against the ego, you know, after Freud's kill the father, there was the kill the ego from the old spiritual paradigm, and that's done, that's finished. We learn now to really see the ego as a child that is in pain and needs our love, our attention, and so by doing that, by giving it that, we actually integrate it into the light of our consciousness. And I can refer you to one of my videos entitled Integrating the Ego, A Key to Self-Love, if you would like to see and learn more about that. In the new spiritual paradigm, we also stopped thinking that we have bad karma because bad things happen to us, or that we did something wrong, or that we deserve it, etc., etc. That's also, or just imagining that the Creator is angry at us and that's why we are experiencing negative things. We are all masters and creators of our own destiny, and we all have free will. We are all able to change the storyline whenever we want to, and anything that we experience is also completely aligned with what we predetermined before the incarnation on a soul level, but it also happens throughout the incarnation. So this free will is always a choice that we have. This is also the case for the law of mirroring. So we all know that the outside world is of course a mirror of our inside world, but we must not use that law of mirroring as a way to berate ourselves all the time by saying, oh, if I attracted this, or if I manifest this, this is showing me, this is mirroring me, what is unresolved inside me, I must have done something wrong, please, Father, forgive me, I have sinned, and all these kinds of, again, victim mentality, that we deserve to be punished, or that we deserve whatever we're experiencing because we did something bad. So the law of mirroring actually works, both ways. So what happens is that as light workers, we are also a mirror for humanity of a possible future, because we lead and we serve by example, just by being, just by evolving. And so personally, for example, as a therapist, of course I work with people who have very similar wounds to mine, and because I healed a lot of them, I can now help them heal their wounds. But I also work with people who have wounds that have nothing to do with my story at all. And if I were to say every time I work with someone, oh, this person is a mirror for me to see what is unresolved inside of me, I would be really in trouble with that. So this is just to tell you that when you evolve spiritually, and when you do the work, when you integrate the shadow, there comes a point in your evolution where, because you manifest people that have certain wounds that you might have had in the past, it doesn't mean that it's unresolved inside of you. It's just the universe's way of showing, look, this is your past and you've healed this. Now, by your presence and by the resolution that you came to, you're actually helping, your vibration is helping this person to perceive a potential future for them. So it all works in this beautiful collective way of, evolving towards the light, where we all, pull each other, higher and higher in this evolution. So how do we know if the outside world is actually reflecting something that is unresolved inside of us? Well, the answer is in what I just said previously. When you have a trigger, when there is an emotional reaction, then this is the clock, or the bell, that tells you, look, this is what you need to pay attention to now. This is what you need to become aware now. There's something you have to liberate. And I also want to talk about empaths, because many of us are empaths, and as empaths, of course, we feel deeply into others' emotions, and sometimes it's very difficult for us to make a difference between the other's emotions and our own emotions, and very often along our journey we think that the emotion of others is actually our own emotion, and we sort of own it. So in the new spiritual paradigm, we learn just to accept the fact that we are empaths, we are feeling the emotion of others or emotions from the collective, but we learn how to make a difference and to set boundaries of what belongs to me and what does not belong to me. And it is also in this way that we are able to lead and serve as an example for others, just to become more sensitive to their own emotions as well, and to really lead them to the path of the heart. And also as empaths, we learn to leave the martyr or the savior aspect of ourselves that's always like, I have to carry the weight of the world or the other's pain on my back. No, this is really part of the fact of becoming aware of what belongs to you, what belongs to others, and not interfere with others' pain, because that's their own journey and it is not yours. In the new spiritual paradigm, we also make a difference between judgment and observation. So observation is the natural state of the soul. It is a meditative state where we just, are observers of our reality. It can be the outside reality, it can also be the inside. So what we feel inside and maybe what reaction we might feel regarding something that is happening on the outside. But we do not feel the need to put labels on something or to have an opinion about something. So judgment is always the tool of the ego. Of course, we all have an ego, we all have a mind, and so we all judge. So I'm not saying here that we should not judge, that it's wrong to judge, and that we should berate ourselves again with judgments. But what I'm saying is that most of our judgments are actually unconscious and are part of this programming that I was talking previously about. And so we are not even aware of our judgments. So in the new spiritual paradigm, we are really invited to become aware of our judgments and to actually see if they are useful, if they are necessary, if they do harm on others or ourselves, because of course there's judgment, but there is also a lot of self-judgment. And we also just acknowledge the fact that as long as we have a body, we have an ego, we have a subjective perspective on the world. Because even when we reach alignment or that we could become completely awakened beings, the ego doesn't die. That's also another bullshit concept from the old spiritual paradigm. As long as you have a body, you have an ego. Otherwise, if the ego dies, the body dies. So what happens when we become fully awake is that we've integrated everything. We've integrated all the shadow self, all the parts of our ego that it needed to. And so it's not the ego that leads the dance anymore, it's really the soul. So there is a clear, distinct perspective on both. And we actually perceive the reality from this observation perspective, which is also called the meditative state or also the samadhi state. This new spiritual paradigm is about becoming more gentle with ourselves and with others. We learn how to heal our wounds and we stop trying to find something to blame outside of ourselves for them. And so this leads to incredible empowerment, strength, and freedom. We also acknowledge the fact that we are the masters of our destiny, we are the creators, and so in any given moment we have the free will to either feed our light or to feed our shadow. We also learn to start perceiving the world through the eyes of the heart and no longer the eyes of the mind. And with this, we are able to anchor the unconditional love that we truly are, and we allow it to radiate it to the world. But to guide the world, we first need to remove what obscures our own vision, so we can become our own guides and our own healers. Sat Nam.